afternoon, students. The long lesson is getting finished, but I think 2 more periods nearer. We have reached up to 1916. In 1916, the first incident that was mentioned in the textbook is 1916's Home Rule Movement. Home Rule Movement. Annie Besant, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and other leaders of Theosophical Society, and all they gathered. And what was their demand? They demanded for self-rule. Yes, no. Indian National Congress and the Muslim League also supported the Home Rule League movement. But as a result, Annie Besant was kept in house arrest. Annie Besant was kept in house arrest at Ooty. So, in entire India, demonstrations and protests were launched. As a result, finally British government set her free. Up to here we had completed in the previous class 1916 Home Rule Movement. Now, one more incident is there in 1916, that is Lucknow Pact. Lucknow Pact. What do you mean by pact? It is agreement, otherwise some decisions taken jointly, and it was held at Lucknow. That is why it is called Lucknow Pact, and the year is 1916. Lucknow Pact refers to an agreement between Indian National Congress and Muslim League at the joint session of both the parties held in Lucknow. So, in Lucknow in 1916, there was a joint session of both the parties. Which parties? Indian National Congress and Muslim League in the year 1916. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, then a member of the Congress as well as the League, made both the parties to reach an agreement to pressurize British government to adopt a more liberal approach towards India and give Indians more authority to run their country. Indian National Congress and Muslim League, two parties established. Already initially Indian National Congress was established, and afterwards in 1906 Muslim League was also established. So, both the parties were working together, and we had seen why Muslim League was established. It was a part of divide and rule policy adopted by the British government. So, even though that seeds of this enmity that was there, then also these both parties were working together for getting self-rule in India. So, these both the parties together, one meeting was held. It was in 1916 at Lucknow. That is why it is called Lucknow Pact. So, underline from the beginning, Indian National Congress and Muslim League at the joint session of both the parties held in Lucknow in the year 1916. And who was the main leader for both the parties? It was Muhammad Ali Jinnah, because he was a member of Indian National Congress as well as Muslim League. He made both the parties to reach an agreement. So, he compelled, Muhammad Ali Jinnah compelled both the parties, one side Muslim League and one side Indian National Congress. He pressurized, he compelled, then about what? To pressurize the British government to get Swaraj. So, both the parties together to work to get Swaraj, and they have to pressurize the British government for that. So, adopt a liberal approach towards the India and give Indians more authority to run the government. What do you mean by give Indians more authority to run their country? Means freedom, Swaraj. The Lucknow Pact also established cordial relations between two prominent groups in Indian National Congress. Those were the moderates and the extremists. Who were moderates and extremists? Last class we had seen. So, in Lucknow Pact, 2 points you should remember. Where it was established, Why it is called Lucknow Pact, and what was the main decisions taken in Lucknow Pact? The first answer is 1916 at Lucknow. Who were the parties that joined together, Indian National Congress and Muslim League. And in that joint session, what was the agreement? Otherwise, for what purpose this Lucknow Pact was there? One, to pressurize British government to get more liberal approach, otherwise to get Swaraj for India. So who will pressurize? Indian National Congress and Muslim League will pressurize. And the second point is that there was a cordial relationship between two groups in Indian National Congress itself. One is moderates and other is extremists. So these points to be covered in this Lucknow Pact. So from the beginning, Lucknow Pact refers to an agreement between Indian National Congress and the Muslim League at the joint session of both the parties held in Lucknow in the year 1960. And afterwards, who was the main leader? Muhammad Ali Jinnah. That also underlined. And then in this, what were the decisions? That adopt a more liberal approach towards India and give Indians more authority to run their country. Who will pressurize for that? Both the parties. And the next one is the moderates and the extremists. There was a cordial relation between the moderates and the extremists also. Okay. I hope understood Lucknow Pact, both the incidents in 1916, Home Rule Movement and Lucknow Pact. Now we are coming to Subhash Chandra Bose and Azad Hind Fauj. Have you heard about Subhash Chandra Bose? Who was he? And where was his birth, and what was his contribution to India, and how did he die? Let us see. Subhash Chandra Bose was born on 23rd January 1897 in Cuttack in Orissa. Underline. He was from Orissa in Cuttack. The year 1897. Subhash Chandra Bose. His birthplace Cuttack in Orissa, and on 23rd January 1897. His mother's name was Prabhavati and father's name was Janakinath Bose. Underline, parents' name Prabhavati and Janakinath Bose. He was very intelligent since his childhood, like you all. He was very intelligent since his childhood. He stood fourth in the ICS exam in the year 1920, conducted in London. ICS exam conducted in London. So then afterwards he joined in Indian National Congress after returning to India and participated in freedom struggle. He passed the exam that was conducted in London, and afterwards he came back to India. He joined with Indian National Congress to participate in freedom struggle. Then he was arrested for 11 times under political offence, not one time or two times. He was arrested by the British government 11 times for political offence. Then he became the president of Haripura session of Indian National Congress in 1938. Underline, in which year he was the president of Indian National Congress, in which session? In Haripura session in 1938, and the second time in Tripura session in 1939. Haripura and Tripura, 1938 and 39. Difference of opinion forced him resign from the post of president of Indian National Congress. Then after 1939, what happened? There were some differences of opinions with other members of this party. So he resigned from the post. He was not interested to continue as the president of this party. Then he resigned from the post. Then in May 1939, Subhash Chandra Bose formed a new political party. He himself formed a new political party after resigning from the post of president of Indian National Congress. And what was the name of that party? It was Forward Bloc. Underline that also. What was the name of the political party that was established by Subhash Chandra Bose? The name is Forward Bloc. And when the Second World War broke out in Europe, Forward Bloc launched an anti-war propaganda. Second World War. First World War I told you 1914 to 1918, and Second World War 1939 to 1945. Second World War. time, Second World War. Then at that time, what was the contribution of this forward bloc, the political party which was established by Subhash Chandra Bose? They launched an anti-war propaganda, anti-war, against the war. They had done some propagandas against the war. They all gathered together and they propaganda. Otherwise, they were demanding that this World War, Second World War, should not be continued for a long time. Then also, it was since from 1939 to 1945, Second World War was there. As a result, Subhash Chandra Bose and his followers were arrested and imprisoned by the government. Because of this anti-war propaganda, Subhash Chandra Bose and his followers were arrested. And while in jail, Subhash Chandra Bose went on a hunger strike, and that deteriorated his health, and the government was forced to set him free. And he was imprisoned. When he was imprisoned, he went for a hunger strike. And as a result, his health deteriorated, and finally the British government was forced to set him free. And he was kept under house arrest again. On 17th January 1941, Subhash Chandra Bose escaped from the house arrest. This is the second person now we are seen in house arrest. First one was Annie Besant, second one Subhash Chandra Bose. But on 17th January 1941, Subhash Chandra Bose escaped from there. He disguised himself as a Pathan and reached Berlin via Peshawar. He disguised himself, means his costumes and his clothes, everything, just like a Pathan. So he escaped from the house arrest. Then he reached Berlin via Peshawar. You know Peshawar region. Through Peshawar, he reached Berlin, then Kabul, Moscow. He gave a speech on Berlin radio which shocked the Britishers. From there, he went to Japan via Sumatra. So he was in house arrest. Without knowing, he escaped from there. Then he reached in Berlin. Through Berlin radio, he had given a message. While hearing this, British government shocked. How he had reached over there? He was there in house arrest. But from there also, he went to another places, then Japan via Sumatra. Through Sumatra, he went to Japan. Now, Germany and Japan were fighting against England. Subhash Chandra Bose took advantage of this. Second World War was going on, and Germany and Japan were fighting against England. So, Subhash Chandra Bose took advantage of this and started communicating with German leader Hitler. Have you heard about German leader Hitler? And Japan's Prime Minister at that time, Tojo. So this was the trick Subhash Chandra Bose used. Already Germany and Japan were fighting against England. Here Subhash Chandra Bose was against England, and England was otherwise Britishers were ruling in India. So Subhash Chandra Bose took advantage of this, and he started communicating with German leader Hitler and Japan's Prime Minister Tojo. Then, being an Asian country, Japan was in a better position to help. So Subhash Chandra Bose decided to start fight for freedom with the help of Japan. Finally, Subhash Chandra Bose selected Japan because it is Asian country, Japan, at the end of eastern side, Japan. It's now the land of rising sun. Then he took advantage. He demanded help from Japan, and with the help of Japan, he decided to start fight for India's freedom. Then, as the chief of Azad Hind Fauj, otherwise Indian National Army, an Indian soldier from British Army, Captain Mohan Singh, formed Azad Hind Fauj, otherwise Indian National Army. Underline. Who established Indian National Army? Otherwise, Indian National Army was formed by Captain Mohan Singh. Underline. Who was he? Was an Indian soldier in British Army. With the help of Indian soldiers who had surrendered to Japan as war prisoners, to help to establish this, the war prisoners also were there. Then, due to difference of opinion between Japanese government and Rash Bihari Bose, Manmohan Singh had to resign. So Mohan Singh had to resign. Finally, Mohan Singh, who had established this, Captain Mohan Singh, he resigned from this post of Indian National Army. What was the reason to his resignation? Because of differences of opinion. Then the future of Azad Hind Fauj, otherwise Indian National Army, became blurred. With a general consent, Rash Bihari Bose appointed Subhash Chandra Bose as the chief of Azad Hind Fauj on 4th July 1943. Underline. Who appointed Subhash Chandra Bose as the chief of Azad Hind Fauj? Rash Bihari Bose. Earlier who was there? It was Captain Manmohan Singh. But there was differences of opinion, due to that he resigned. Then the future was not predictable. At that time, Rash Bihari Bose compelled Subhash Chandra Bose to take leadership. So he took leadership in 1943. Then he was given the honorary title of Netaji. Now we call him Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who had given actually Indian soldiers of Azad Hind Fauj called him Netaji. So from then onwards he was known as Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Then he gave the slogan Chalo Delhi and Jai Hind to the Fauj and Nation. 2-3 slogans are there in this lesson. 3 slogans mentioning about Subhash Chandra Bose also, and one we had already seen that Bal Gangadhar Tilak. So all this you should learn by heart. Underline the slogans given by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, Chalo Delhi and Jai Hind. 2 are there mentioning in this paragraph. Then he toured the countries of Southeast Asia and appealed the Indians living there to sacrifice everything for the freedom of the country. All Southeast Asian countries he travelled. Then he appealed the people, you sacrifice everything for the freedom of the country. Then he said to the people, his famous slogan is this, you give me blood, I'll give you freedom. तुम मुझे खून दो, मैं तुम्हें आज़ादी दूंगा. तुमने सुना होगा. So underline that also, you give me blood and I will give you freedom. It's a very famous quote of Subhash Chandra Bose. Underline, this slogan gave a new impetus to the freedom struggle. So people were very much attracted by this slogan. See Subhash Chandra Bose and comrades of Azad Hind Fauj, you can see at the middle, and the persons who are surrounded by him. Now provisional government, a temporary government. Subhash Chandra Bose established Arsi Hukumat-e Azad Hind. Underline. It is temporary government, otherwise acting government of Free India in Singapore. Where he had established? In Singapore. All Southeast Asian countries he was travelling. So he established in Singapore in October 1943. And he took charge as the chief of the army. So who was the chief of this temporary government, that otherwise acting government? Arsi Hukumat Azad Hind, Subhash Chandra Bose. This government declared a war against Europe, England and America. Already World War was going on. It is in the year 1943. Till 1945 Second World War was there. So this government declared a war against England and America. Which government? This temporary government. Who was the chief? Subhash Chandra Bose. Such a courageous man he was. Then role of Azad Hind Fauj. It was recognized by Subhash Chandra Bose after he became the chief of the Arsi Hukumat-e Azad Hind. Proper training was given to soldiers and the Azad Hind Fauj was divided into various battalions, different battalions. So proper guidance to the soldiers. The main aim was to fight against other countries only, to get freedom, especially against England. So these things to know. Azad Hind Fauj was divided into 4 main battalions by Subhash Chandra Bose and was named as Gandhi, Subhash, Nehru and Azad respectively. Underline the names, which were the 4 battalions of Azad Hind Fauj. First one Gandhi, second one Subhash, third one Nehru and Azad. A special and a separate battalion named Jhansi Ki Rani constituted only of females and was led by Captain Lakshmi Sekhar. And 1 battalion for ladies. What was the name? Jhansi Ki Rani. And it was led by Captain Lakshmi Sekhar. So these complete things to know box is very important. Put a star mark over there and underline the points also. Then Azad Hind Fauj secured victory at various fronts in the eastern border of India like Arakham and Imphal, all the eastern border of India, Assam, that region. Later on, Fauj was forced to retreat due to the shortage of food supply and heavy rain. We know eastern side of India getting heavy rainfall. So at that time also that had happened, very heavy rainfall and shortage of food. So as a result they could not move. So America and Japan, that nuclear bomb and everything that had happened in Second World War, it is almost at the ending of the Second World War. Then what happened? The dynamics of the war changed and the future of the Azad Hind Fauj became very hazy. Then because of Second World War, the future of Azad Hind Fauj was very unclear. Then 4,000 soldiers died and 25,000 soldiers were arrested when America dropped bomb. All these things in between the Second World War. So Subhash Chandra Bose and Azad Hind Fauj could not work in a proper way during this war. Netaji had taken a vow that he will not enter in the subjugated India. So Netaji left Rangoon and Bangkok and moved ahead by air. Rangoon, Myanmar. The present name is Myanmar. So he decided he will not come to India because India freedom, after getting freedom only, he was planning to come to India. So he went to Rangoon and Bangkok and moved ahead by air. As per the reports published by the Japanese government, his plane that took off from Taipei airport of Formosa on 18th August 1945 crashed and Netaji, being seriously burned, succumbed to death. It's a belief, but not much clarity is there. Still a lot of confusions regarding Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's death. But here the history, otherwise the Britishers says that his plane, when he went to Rangoon and Bangkok, at that time he took off from Taipei airport of Formosa and this plane crashed, and as a result Netaji died. So we believe like that Netaji died in that plane crash in 1945. But the exact reasons, still a lot of mysteries are there. Now exercise questions are there. We will discuss the exercise questions in the coming class. Anyway, this lesson is completed, very long lesson. I think 2-3 weeks we were taking this, since 2-3 weeks, but now we have reached up to 1945. But about this Subhash Chandra Bose incident only, that about 1945. But many things are there again coming in about freedom, that in the coming lessons it will be there, freedom movement, that is starting from lesson 7. But we will go ahead with lessons only according to the lesson number what is given in the textbook. In lesson number 7, again starting with 1917. So 1916 two incidents are there. After Lucknow Pact, we went to the short brief history of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, and there we had taken up to 1945, his death. But the freedom movement, that again starting from 1916, otherwise 1917 to 1947, it is coming afterwards in the coming lessons. That start from lesson number 7. In between some political science lessons are there, economic related lessons are there, that we will continue. So in the next class we will discuss the question answers. Okay.